Well, I'm not sure whether he drove or not, but Mayor Sadiq Khan left Tower Bridge to head to the Labour conference in Brighton, where he took a shot at the party's Brexit stance. Speaking at a side event, Mr Khan said neutrality was not an option and the party should be unequivocally pro-Remain. Simon Harris sent this update.
With less than a year to go before the next mayoral election, you would normally expect Labour's candidate to make a big speech to his party conference. But there'll be no conference speech from Sadiq Khan this year. Jeremy Corbyn denies it's because he and the mayor have fallen out over Brexit. But the rift between the two men widened even further today. Addressing a fringe meeting here in Brighton, the mayor called on Labour to make staying in the EU official party policy. And of Mr Corbyn's plan to stay neutral in any second referendum, Mr Khan said that simply wasn't an option. That will be seen as a direct challenge to Mr Corbyn's authority.
Simon Harris reporting there.
Good evening. Sadiq Khan has called for an investigation into former Mayor Boris Johnson over claims he failed to declare potential conflicts of interest when allocating public money to an American businesswoman. In the last half hour, the Prime Minister has denied any wrongdoing in relation to his association with Jennifer Arcuri. The technology entrepreneur was granted thousands of pounds of money while Mr Johnson was at City Hall. Our political correspondent Simon Harris has the full story.
Jennifer Arcuri made no secret of her admiration for Boris Johnson long before he became Prime Minister.
I am here with the legend behind the Olympics and the man that supports businesses, the Mayor of London, Boris Johnson.
She helped campaign for his re-election as mayor in 2012, and here in 2013 she hosted a conference which was partly sponsored by the mayor's promotional agency, London and Partners, known as L&P. Miss Arcuri's business, Innotech, was given £10,000 by L&P.
I'm ready to hang out. Yeah,
look at that, Boris is hanging out.
But now questions are being asked about whether the mayor declared a potential conflict of interest. His successor at City Hall, in Brighton today for the Labour conference, has ordered officials to carry out an investigation.
Even Boris Johnson deserves the benefit of the doubt. These are just at the moment allegations in a newspaper, in a Sunday newspaper, and so let's wait and see what the process uncovers, the investigation uncovers. It's important for there to be transparency. What I've asked the Chief of Staff to do is to arrange for City Hall officials to undertake the investigation.
In 2015, Boris Johnson went to New York on a trade mission. City Hall says Miss Arcuri wanted to go too, but was told she didn't qualify. That wasn't the end of the matter, as an internal London and Partners email reveals. It says she has been speaking to Boris and an unnamed senior advisor about her being in NY, and they are both apparently happy with that. So we should treat her as simply another member of the London tech community.
It's wrong to judge him before we know all the facts, but this looks so like the sort of thing that he would do and could do. The whole thing about his overruling officials' concerns is absolutely typical. He does not like to be told what to do in that way.
Later in 2015, the mayor was in Israel. Again, Miss Arcuri asked to be included. Again, she was told she didn't qualify. But after another intervention by a mayoral advisor, she joined the delegation. It's understood on both trips Miss Arcuri paid for her flights and hotels. Today in New York, Mr Johnson was asked if he intervened to get her included on City Hall trips.
I can tell you absolutely everything was done with full propriety and in accordance with proper procedures.
Did you intervene to get her on trade delegation?
I am very, very confident that if you look at the record of what we achieved in London, everything was done.
But did you intervene? Did you intervene to get Jennifer Arcuri on a trade delegation she wasn't qualified to be on?
As indeed I have been doing today.
What was the nature of your relationship with Jennifer Arcuri? Were you friends or was it something else?
I worked incredibly hard as Mayor of London to promote our city, and
are you still
very
in
happy
touch
with the
her?
results.
Miss Arcuri now lives in California. In a statement, she said any grants given to her companies were purely in respect of her role as a legitimate businesswoman. Simon Harris, ITV News.
Well, it's been another day of incredible political drama. All 11 judges at the Supreme Court were unanimous in their ruling. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson's decision to suspend Parliament was unlawful. Well, the former London mayor faced calls for him to resign. In a moment, we'll hear from Gina Miller, the West London anti-Brexit campaigner who took the case to the Supreme Court. But first to Brighton, where Labour have been holding their party conference, of course. Our political correspondent Simon Harris is there. Simon, what have MPs been telling you today?
Lucrezia, the Supreme Court ruling didn't just cause excitement at Westminster, it caused a certain amount of upheaval here at the Labour conference in Brighton. Jeremy Corbyn was due to give his main speech to the conference's leader tomorrow. But tomorrow, Mr Corbyn and his MPs will be back in London as a result of that ruling. So instead, he gave his big conference speech this afternoon, and not surprisingly, he didn't hold back.
The government will be held to account for what it has done. Boris Johnson has been found to have misled the country. This unelected Prime Minister should now resign.
Even after the infighting of the last few days, that was a sentiment delegates from all wings of the party could embrace, and it was a sentiment echoed by those MPs I spoke to.
Boris Johnson seriously needs to consider his position. He should be resigning. That no Prime Minister should be in post if they have acted unlawfully.
He is reckless and he is riding roughshod over the law, over Parliament, and we must not let him continue. He needs to consider his position.
He has tried to shut down democracy by proroguing Parliament. It has been found to be unlawful. He now needs to think about his actions and the people that he tried to mislead.
Boris Johnson heard the Supreme Court's ruling in New York, where he's at the United Nations.
Obviously, this is a verdict that we will respect, and we respect the judicial process. I have to say I strongly disagree with what the justices have found. I don't think that it's right, but we will go ahead and, of course, Parliament will come back.
Still no word from Jeremy Corbyn today of when he might push for a vote of no confidence to trigger a general election, so we still are no clearer when that possible general election might be. Tonight, Boris Johnson is heading back to London on a plane. And as for those Labour MPs here in Brighton, and by no means were all of them here, they've packed their bags. The Brighton Line trains to London are going to be very busy tonight, Lucrezia.
I'm sure they will be. Simon, thank you. Good evening. Tosh and Cavalia was on his way to watch his football team Arsenal play at the Emirates yesterday when his life was brutally cut short. The 20-year-old was stabbed to death while waiting for the tube on the platform at Hillingdon Station, targeted, say police, by strangers in a completely unprovoked attack. Well, just a couple of hours after Tashan was killed, 22-year-old Osvaldo Cavalia was also stabbed to death 10 miles away on Ealing Common. We'll be there live in just a moment. But first, from Hillingdon, here's our correspondent Simon Harris.
Tosh and Cavalia had so much to look forward to. He was a gifted athlete and aspiring photographer, and yesterday was shaping up to be a good day. He was on his way to see his beloved Arsenal thrash their opponents. But today, his friends were trying to come to terms with the awful reality that Tashan had been murdered.
I don't think it's sunk in still. I think it's still unbelievable. He sort of, like, yesterday ringing him, after, like, when I heard the news, still ringing and thinking, oh no, he'll pick up, go into his house. No, he'll open the door, he'll be there. Everyone telling me that it's all rubbish. But obviously still just can't think of it.
Tashan was waiting with a friend for a tube train at Hillingdon Station when two other men started a fight on the platform. For no apparent reason, he was stabbed. This wasn't a killing in some dark alleyway, but a murderous attack in daylight on the Underground, carried out with utter disregard, not just for the victim, but for other passengers, and in full view of multiple security cameras. That CCTV footage has already helped the police build up a picture of what happened.
From what I've seen now of the CCTV of the account, there's nothing to suggest that Tashan was involved in any of the instigation of this assault, and it does appear to be an unprovoked attack.
Tashan's killers were seen running along a nearby street where police later found a knife. As teams of officers searched for more clues, some of their colleagues were on duty at the station to try to reassure passengers.
Someone left the house yesterday and now their parents are never going to see them again. It's just really upset us. It's just awful. When's it going to end?
It's just standard now for this area, and well, any area, I think any of the London boroughs are going downhill.
I feel sick now that we have to even use the tube where he died, so, you know, we've really come up here thinking, oh God, anxiety, even going to the station.
For Tashan's friends, the injustice of what happened is hard to take in.
I just feel annoyed that something so petty, something so silly You lose a whole life, whole friendship, a whole family just devastated just because something so silly.
Tonight, Arsenal said everyone at the club was shocked and deeply saddened. 24 hours ago, Tosh and Cavalia simply wanted to see his team win. It wasn't much to ask. Today, flowers and messages in memory of a young man murdered were left outside a station. One offering this thought: time for people to stand up and say no more. Simon Harris, ITV News, Hillingdon.